Welcome to another episode of As Jazz Recommends. In this episode, we are going to discuss a Japanese album from 2017. It's by this duo called Kikuohana. So, Kikuo is a producer from Japan who has a very big back catalog, but I've already only listened to his stuff through this collaboration that he did with Hanatan. And they only did two albums, from one from 2016 called Dai-ni-maku, and then this one from 2017 called Dai-ni-maku. And yeah, both are great, but this second one is the one that I introduced myself to first, and I've been listening to this way more than the first one, although I still need to digest the first one more as well. But this album is really hard to put into one like genre category, as it has so many different things going for it. But again, it's kind of art pop with again electronic production, but it also has lots of influence from like film soundtracks, and it has those kind of even classical type of samples. I don't think they're actual instruments, but they are samples. And the vocals are very angelic, very emotional. You can hear like variety of emotions. I mean, most of them are kind of very dark. There's lots of anxiety and depression. And when I did a discussion with Ronin recently about Japanese music, I described her vocals as she's kind of like a fallen angel because she has that kind of angelic voice, but she at the same time shows so much pain in her voice. So it feels like a tortured angel in a way or something like that. And I absolutely adore her vocals. I love the production and the variety there, but the vocals are definitely the highlight for me, as her voice really touches me so deeply. And again, I haven't looked at the lyrics for every single song, but the ones that I have seen have been like pretty dark. For one is, for example, about toxic relationships and anxiety, and I think one is about bullying and kind of misfortune and things like that. So it's very dark lyrically as well. Although the album also has this kind of it doesn't take itself that seriously like all the time. So it has that kind of funkier, kind of funny kind of side to it as well, and some cheesiness here and there as well. So it's kind of mix of different tones and different types of production. Sometimes it goes even to like dubstep, and sometimes it's like very art pop like Björk, and sometimes it has that kind of neoclassical thing going for it. So many different things. But so, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I enjoyed the album. I think it's really good, and it's one that it's like on re-listens, it grows more and more on you, because like you said, it's like an album that's difficult to pin down, and I don't always really think about albums in terms of genre, and all that. So yeah, like you said, like if you think about that, then yeah, the album is anti-genre in a sense because it's going going so many different directions, but then bringing it all together into this like cohesive whole experience with its own signature. So I think it's quite an achievement. It's quite a like complete body. So there's no skips. It is compatible. It's not like each one is seeming like out of place. But one other element that I noticed in the album was is in some ways it's like those had also some compositions that's like a Broadway musical,
Yeah,
as well. So there was this kind of musical like showman, like you're putting on a show quality, uh, as well, which I think, I mean, of course, I don't know the lyrics except for the one I saw the translation for, but I think it's this like you said that it's like not taking itself seriously, but it has pretty um, kind of dark themes or themes of even like you can feel the anxiety in the music as well. Sometimes the sadness in the singing and all that stuff. So it's kind of like tears of a clown type thing too. So in a way, I'm entertaining you. I'm giving you tracks that are very danceable and enjoyable. Some are even upbeat. some have these like folk elements too, like accordions and all that are really fun and whimsical, but you can also sense, something under the surface. But at the same time, yes, in a pop sense. It's not trying to go very, very, very deep. It's a fun album. It's an enjoyable album, um, and very creative as well, with great
Yeah,
singing. Like you said, the vocals are amazing. Yeah, the range is amazing of the vocals and all that. Yeah.
yeah. That the Broadway musical point was really good because it really does feel like that. And like you said, it's very whimsical and also kind of over the top and grand and in your face in that musical way. And I guess in music, obviously, you have these often up and down. So like this album has too. So sometimes it has those very crazy beats that are like really fast and pounding you, but then it sometimes has these funkier kind of sunny, bright beats as well, that where the tempo is way slower, and then it has that excruciating pain, like in the Hitokawari song that I love, like that just hits the feels so much, and then it ends in a very kind of melancholic way with also again beautiful vocals, and the last part of the album is also like kind of shows it's kind of like a culmination, so it has all the elements together in the end, and the album flows really nicely. Like it starts with a short intro that gets you in the mood, and then it starts with this pretty intense track, and then after the Hitokawari song, there's this short interlude, so you can take a bit of a breather as well. And one of the genres that I forgot to mention is that there's definitely some small like jazz pop type of influence here too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's so much there.
Yeah, there's a lot there. You wouldn't think it all that can go together, but it does. And I think that's a great achievement. And the other feeling I got is not just a musical, but almost like a carnival and fair, because it felt like you're going on these different rides. Like it felt like when you're at a carnival and stuff, and then there are these rides you go on, and then there's some like musical performance going on, and then there are like clowns performing, because there's a lot of these comedic sounds too, like like it's like a clown performing, and then some of the singing is like and it's like, oh, you're on a roller coaster, you're in a Ferris wheel. Like it felt like being in a carnival as well. Things are distorted, sometimes things are moving a bit too quick. There's this combination of experiences like sounds, smells, and sights and all that happening at once. So I also felt like, of course, this is an album that would very much be appreciated, kind of like people in their teens and stuff like that as well, because you can have very not to say that people can't have intense emotions, is not like speaking down, but I'm remembering me being a teen, so you can have very intense emotions of like heightened love or heightened sadness and all that, and sometimes the time between the emotion change can be very quick. So you can see that quick shifts even in the song. You're like, starting a little bit like melancholy, but then it gets kind of broody, and dark and deep, and then it kind of ends up in a almost ambiguous space. So I'm like, yeah, the constructions are really interesting for the songs, both musically and vocally, and I'm sure the lyrics would add even more to that if you could, if you, I guess, I don't know, can you translate it as we discussed in nostalgia, um, and still have the same effect, but you can feel it, you can feel the experience that they're going for. And then there are these little flares as well, with reversing, playing music in reverse and stuff, and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in this album.
Yeah, that like amusement park rides was a good,
Yes.
because like I remember those kind of horror scary rides that you could take, that when it's like going slowly, but then like some clown like jumps on you, then like
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
right or
Yeah.
things like,
Yeah.
yeah. I went a lot to those places when I was a kid. So yeah, it definitely sounds like that. It feels like it kind of goes through every possible emotion you can go through, and it would be like a good soundtrack for anime as well, or something like that, because again it would just fit like so many different types of scenes in an anime or in a film, because it's just kind of is it all in a way. It's one's journey, like one's life journey basically, because it just has all of those intense emotions that you go through. So,
Yeah, when you bring out what would be a soundtrack for, it's actually it's a very interesting question, because yeah, like anime, definitely, but you could see it could almost fit with something a little more adult as well. I'm like, it's not exactly like, okay, a fit for something like a Clockwork Orange, but there are elements of like a Clockwork Orange that you could totally see like some of the songs kind of fitting in when they are trying to, like you said, like create that amusement park type feel with the clowns and like clowning around and the hijinks. Um, but the madness, because there is a little bit of madness in the music too. You do feel a bit like at times like you're going a bit mad, because it's like it's almost too much when it's not too much. And I'm like, I appreciate how they walked that line, because that could have easily been too much, throwing all these elements and changes and things together. But it's like on this verge of too much, but never quite crossing the line. So sometimes, yeah, you do feel that sense of anxiety, like, oh my God, like things are moving really quickly. And then sometimes there's this madness, like, oh, there's too much going on. There's some like electronic sounds going on. Then there's some industrial sound, but then there's some folky sounds, and then there's this very interesting vocals going on. So such a it's such an experience, this album. Yeah, to listen to. And I like more and more I got into it, and then I could hear the songs in my head, even when I'm not listening to them and stuff like that and all that. And then I'm like, okay, yeah, it's really like kind of getting into the system now.
yeah, and the album cover is good as well. When we have
Oh
the
yeah, yeah.
young girl, and around her there is lots of crazy stuff. So, and of course the Hitogawari lyric video like has a young girl, scarred young girl, talking about her toxic relationships and anxiety. So it kind of shows how maybe it really is about like again a young person just kind of finding their way, but everywhere you go there's this madness and darkness and toxicity. So it's this kind of young person's like journey through depression and anxiety, and you can really hear it. And of course, like we know with anxiety, it feels like your brain is like burning with kind of overthinking and things like that. So it kind of fits this type of madness, that it feels that like that in your brain when you're anxious, that everything is happening at once and you are thinking about everything, even though you should let it go, but you can't. And that really, the album really shows you that feeling, even when you don't understand the lyrics, but her voice is just so expressive that even when you don't know what she's saying, you kind of know what she's talking about anyway. So,
Yeah, I mean, you're making so many interesting points that I can like connect to with just the soundscape and the composition and everything like that. Like, yeah, starting with the cover, definitely the imagery on the cover really matches what the album is, because you have this like it's like a doll or a marionette. So based on what you're saying about, when you're being young, you're still very much, you don't have your freedom. Your strings are being pulled, you are being controlled, you don't quite feel real yet, that kind of Pinocchio-esque type thing. I'm not quite real yet, and I'm trying to discover what real is. But at the same time, you are experiencing very real things in the form of heartbreak, trauma, um, really like intense emotions at times, um, struggles and problems and confusion. And then, there's also this intensity because it's all in you, kind of waiting to explode and express itself. And then even seeing all these music instrumentation, it's kind of like all these music exists, but you want to express it in a new way, right? Isn't that kind of your desire when you're young? You're always like just like in hip hop, for example, when you talk about taking those samples, turning them into something else. So this is in a way a very young and inspirational in that way and aspirational in that way, because it's like they're trying to do new things. So that's definitely a theme in the album that all is very consistent. It's very consistent in all that, despite all its experimentation. It's creating a consistent experience from the album cover to through each of the tracks. You can feel what it's about thematically, which is, I really enjoy that.
And you can think that she is like crying for help, but the music itself is that kind of crazy world around her, madness everywhere, and very many different things that you have to deal with, and how you get overwhelmed. And again, she's crying for help, but then all these new things are hitting her all the time, so she cannot escape her anxiety and depression. So it's like very expressive in that way also, and the ending really feels like it's just kind of, there's some kind of, it kind of solves itself in some way. There's some kind of peace when she does that kind of final cry in the last song, even though the beats are still like really crazy there, but it just feels like there's some kind of melancholic solution to it in the end. So maybe you should look at the lyrics for the last song that is called, I think, Bonkotsu Ningyo no Uta or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have no clue what that means in English, but yeah.
That's a really good point, because it's like a melancholy, but there's a resolution. So that's, there's definitely a cathartic effect when you're listening to all that. It is also releasing in you some of those things that, by someone like experiencing it that intensely for you. And in a way, yeah, it ties again with the show type thing, because it is a form of art and show and entertainment. So they're doing it for you, but in a kind of in a kind of production. And so that self-awareness actually is quite brilliant. Um, it, it adds a layer and also creates a bit of the fun and lightness that also can pervades like um, in the tracks, right? So like I said, like some of the tracks like very danceable, like very catchy, like um, yeah, fun.
They really get stuck in your head. Like now I'm having the last song stuck in my head, and again the really final part when it kind of calms down in the very end is like it has this like simple melody like dun 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 dun. So it sounds like it kind of life is moving forward in a way.
Yeah.
It again simplifies in the very end, and then those sounds like that melody sounds like it's like taking steps calmly forward. So maybe the life is, again, it has that resolution in the end musically in that way that
Yeah.
it finally calms down, and maybe finally there is some peace, even though when you look at the Hitokawari lyrics, it doesn't feel like there's
Yeah,
peace,
exactly.
because she says in the end that I'm lonely forevermore. And
Yeah.
again, when you find a new relationship, you cannot be happy because you have those old scars that are always
Yeah.
open,
Yeah.
and you cannot move forward from that. Then you kind of start craving that toxicity when you get used to it, and when you feel like you don't have any self-worth. So that's like a very accurate portrayal of anxiety.
Yeah, like I like that the lyrics in that, because it like applies for different types of tragedy as well, because it's like kind of, if your heart has been broken, then it's like you're not quite the same after a heart's been broken, right? You're always going to be a bit more wary. You're just going to be more afraid to. You're always going to have a little bit of personal distance. It's never really the same when you're like the most open and you get hurt. And that's why I felt like, yeah, it does feel like the journey of someone in your youth as well, because it's like you're so open, you're so this, and then it's like you get hurt, and then it's like you have the scars, and then you kind of, you're trying to heal through connection again, but that connection is actually making you feel more alone, because it's making you realize in the ways you're kind of broken, and you'll never be kind of that whole, that ideal whole that you were before, that trusting, that fully open, that fully loving. So it's like there's that tragedy in there that I feel like everyone can connect with on some level, regardless of the level and type of experience you had with that. It's almost like something almost everyone shares in one way or another. So yeah, very very kind of yeah, relatable song. Like,
Yeah, and those crazy high notes that she hits in the chorus,
yeah,
like
yeah.
it's just it's like I feel like I'm in heaven when I hear it. It's just such an incredible vocal performance. But then it also has those crazy beats, like that one instrumental part when it sounds like your mind is twisting, and
Yeah.
she even says that she is twisted and things like. Yeah, it fits it really well.
Yeah, you can feel that. Yeah, you can definitely feel that. So it's really well done. Um, the kind of vision in terms of the musical composition, instrumentation, and all that kind of stuff, and the different like experimentation, but aligning with the vocals. It's like it's yeah. It does. You can feel like your mind wrenching sometimes. Your mind feeling like oh, like you just by the what you're listening to alone, without even knowing what the lyrics are saying. So that's also rewarding to know that yeah, you can listen to music sometimes not know what's being said, but still you can feel it, and what a way of communication that is.
And I think this album also feels like very unique. Like some of the individual parts are like, yeah, I have heard that before, but then when you put it all into the melting pot and together, then it sounds like such a fresh and unique combination, even though some of the individual elements you have heard before.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that.
But yeah, I think we can probably wrap this up now, and I'm glad you enjoyed the album. I really love it, and I've been like listening to it manically in the last couple of weeks when I've had the time, because I've been kind of addicted to it now, and I will probably keep listening to it a lot even after this.
It is an addictive album. I have to say that you once you hear it too, it's like you want to put it on again, and then you want to put it on again. So there's day after day. So it definitely is. It's like it keeps growing on you, and then you want to hear it again, and then it's like you hear the music in your head, and you want to hear it again. Like it's definitely. I can see why. Yeah, you would feel that way. Yeah.
But next time it's gonna be something very different. The next couple of times will be hip hop again, but not kind of your average hip hop, but they will be a bit more experimental, weirder stuff. So next time it's gonna be Victor Vaughn, aka MF Doom, and his album Vaudeville Villain, which is one of his most acclaimed albums and one of my personal favorites from him. So that will be very interesting to talk about.
Interesting that it's vaudeville because, of course, there's a vaudeville element in this album that we just heard. So very interesting kind of choices you're making. So
yeah. And then after that, it will be Danny Brown with Atrocity Exhibition, which is an absolutely insane album. It has a Kendrick feature, that one too. So. But anyway, it's quite a few weeks from now. So
yeah. All right. Yeah. Looking forward to the next. Going on to the next things.
Yeah. But anyway, thanks for watching this. Let me know or let us know what you think of this album if you have heard it. And look out for more As Jess Recommends episodes for both films and music. So thanks for watching. Don't drink Coke at all. Sayonara and arigato gozaimashita.